11. Burglar leaves behind personal info. In a crime that's been described by police as fairly unsophisticated, a burglar in East Harrington, England, was arrested by law enforcement after leaving a backpack holding paperwork with his personal details on it at the crime scene. After breaking into a garage and stealing some cleaning equipment, 43-year-old Malcolm Pike forgot to take his bag with him during his escape. But investigators didn't complain when they found mail inside that led them straight to the suspect. When confronted, Pike admitted to multiple crimes in connection to a robbery spree throughout the region, including one incident where he stole a family's laundry straight off their clothesline while it was hanging outside to dry. He pleaded guilty to 2 burglary counts and 2 charges of theft. For his stupidity, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. In a statement made after the sentencing hearing, a police spokesperson described Pike as a prolific thief who has consistently proven a disregard for the law and the welfare of others. The agency credited Pike's mistake of leaving his personal items behind with helping the law catch him and bring him to justice. 10. Cell phone thief cries the blues. When John Bell went into a Houston cell phone store back in April 2017 and demanded cash from the register, Katrina Leon flat out told him no and rushed both her coworkers and customers outside. What Bell didn't notice is that when Katrina went out of the store, she locked the door from the outside. He continued to mindlessly grab a bunch of cell phones, thinking he just hit a big payday, and was shocked when he realized he was locked in the store and couldn't escape. Desperate to leave before the cops showed up, Bell pulled out a gun and fired several shots at the door. When that failed to give him a way out, he threw his whole body against the door and kicked it in an attempt to break open the exit. The armed thief eventually started begging, desperately dropping to his knees and pleading with Katrina to let him out. In surveillance footage of the burglary, Bell was heard saying, "I'm sorry, please," and "I have nothing." After being threatened and shot at, though, the store's workers were not about to simply let this guy get away with his crimes. The door stayed firmly locked until the police arrived and took the attempted thief into custody for aggravated robbery. It soon came to light that Bell was on probation for a previous aggravated robbery conviction for burglarizing another store at gunpoint just 2 years earlier. He clearly had not learned his lesson the first time, and any leniency he received in the past went straight out the window. The judge revoked Bell's deferred sentence for the last robbery and sent him straight to prison for 12 years. He became eligible for parole in 2022, but is still behind bars for now. Bell could end up staying there until his maximum release date comes in 2028. 9. Burglar gets trapped in chimney. The police are typically the last people a thief would want at their crime scene before they escape. But during 2018's holiday season, a 22-year-old Australian man had no choice but to call the authorities for help when he got stuck inside the chimney of a pharmacy he was trying to rob. By the time emergency responders arrived at the crime scene in Lancefield, about 43 miles, 70 kilometers outside Melbourne, the suspect was already covered head to toe in black soot. The thief got to the pharmacy earlier that night. When he tried going in through the door, he triggered the alarm and left the scene. But he was apparently still determined to get inside, and returned later on with the intention of getting inside the store one way or another. When authorities responded to the man's call for help, he claimed that he'd been on top of the pharmacy's roof taking photos of the night sky, but he didn't even have a camera with him, and a balaclava was discovered at the scene. Not exactly something someone would wear for an innocent photo session, especially since the summer heat was raining down in Australia at the time. Authorities arrested the man for burglary, and while he wasn't happy to face criminal charges, he was lucky that he only suffered minor injuries. 8. Jammed up jewelry thief. In 2018, a careful jewelry store owner in Chonburi, Thailand, was quick to notice a man who was suspiciously trying on a 500-pound, $640 gold chain. Suspecting that the shopper was actually a thief and not just a customer, 41-year-old Jarai Nitikaran decided to lock the front door from behind the counter. He silently activated the store's emergency security system as well. When the shoplifter tried to run out of the store, he was surprised after realizing he was trapped inside. Left with no other choice, he returned the chain to Nitikarun and was immediately arrested for stealing. When confronted with security footage of the theft during police interrogation, 27-year-old Suphachai Pantong admitted that he did try to shoplift. He told them a sob story about how he had just lost his job and really needed the money. But he wasn't let off the hook for his crime. When the story broke out online, he was still awaiting sentencing. But Thailand's criminal justice system is notoriously heavy-handed, so it wouldn't be surprising if he ended up serving time in prison. 7. Clumsy carjacker. A group of burglars in Key Biscayne, Florida, made headlines back in May 2023 after the local police chief described them as some of the dumbest criminals he'd ever seen. Surveillance footage of the incident showed a group of 4 masked intruders as they broke into the garage of a home and stole the owner's Cadillac Escalade. The theft triggered the expensive car's anti-theft system, which captured video evidence of the young man in the driver's seat struggling to get the SUV out of the garage. When he finally shifted the Escalade into reverse gear and stepped on the gas, he backed the SUV right up into a wall, then crashed into another vehicle that was parked outside in the driveway. The suspects then quickly ditched the Escalade at the scene and ran off on foot. Police released video footage of the crime in hopes that members of the public would be able to identify the young men, who apparently didn't realize that it's a good idea to know how to drive first before trying to steal a car. 6. Gumball machine theft goes south. A California man made news headlines across the country in 2018 when video footage of his failed attempt to steal a gumball machine from an animal shelter went viral online. The video showed the suspect walking inside the Front Street Animal Shelter in Sacramento through a broken door and grabbing the large machine, which was quite noticeably taller than him. It was a strange way for someone to spend their Friday night, to say the least. And the situation only got more bizarre and hilarious as the thief struggled to get the machine out of the building. As soon as the man picked up the machine, the lid of the candy dispenser fell off. Instead of putting it back, he repeatedly kicked the door in an attempt to knock out more of the glass and make an opening large enough for him to fit the contraption through. He then tried cramming the machine in through the opening, but he couldn't get it to budge. The thief then crawled backwards through the opening and tried to pull the machine outside, even though it was obviously too big to fit through the small space. After seeing that the shelter had a back door, the suspect carried it out effortlessly. But the backyard was fenced in, so the man struggled to get the machine over the barbed wire fence surrounding the facility. He eventually managed to get it over, but after all the abuse the machine took during the theft, it probably wasn't in great shape once it finally got off the property. Footage of the idiotic robbery circulated all over, but it's unclear if the suspect was ever arrested. 5. The Goldilocks intruder. In 2014, retired British couple Martin Holtby and Pat Dyson were shocked when they came home from vacation to an intruder sleeping in their bed. They were even more surprised after realizing that the man had washed their dishes, bought some groceries, and even did his laundry. In fact, the house was in better shape upon the couple's return than it had been when they left. The intruder also treated himself to a scented bubble bath during the 2 days he spent living in the home as if it was his own. Martin Holtby admitted later on that he and Pat were shocked but not scared by the uninvited guest. In fact, the stranger seemed more afraid of the couple than they were of him. When Pat heard her husband yelling at the intruder to get out of their bed, she rushed upstairs and found the man cowering under the bed sheets. Police arrested 28-year-old Polish immigrant Łukasz Chonowski, who reportedly became homeless thanks to a confusion resulting from a large language barrier. He claimed he didn't think anyone was living there after seeing the overgrown plants outside and noticing that no one was in the house. Chonowski admitted to the crimes. He received a conditional discharge, which meant that he'd remain free as long as he stayed out of trouble. Thankfully, no serious damage was done, and nobody got hurt. Holtby and Dyson even joked about the incident not long after, describing the situation as a bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, with Chonowski being the tiny baby bear in this case. 4. Purse thief accidentally admits to crime on national TV. Judge Judy is infamous for her no-nonsense approach on her courtroom drama show, which ran for roughly 25 seasons and remains one of the most popular shows of its genre on television. One of the most memorable cases of her career aired in 2015, when an 18-year-old girl named Guinea Paradeza accused a man of stealing her purse. Paradeza told Judge Judy that the purse held her wallet, a few gift cards, money, a calculator, and an earpiece. The defendant, who was with a friend in court, interrupted by saying, "There was no earpiece, ma'am." That simple statement was enough to tell the courtroom who was in the wrong. Needless to say, he made the judge's decision easy, and the whole country got a good laugh out of the man's accidental confession. Judge Judy even broke out of her normally unamused expression and laughed at the defendant and his buddy as she pointed at them, calling them dumb and dumber. Less than 20 seconds into the hearing, the case was finished with a favorable verdict for the plaintiff. 3. Manual transmission trips up car thief. During the early morning one day in March 2023, a thief stole an extremely rare Brabham BT21 race car from a property outside Melbourne, Australia. The vehicle was recovered just a few streets away from where it had been stolen in the upscale suburb of Turok. Sadly, it was extremely damaged and undrivable. The car's original owner, Peter Williams, told ABC Australia that he thought the thief ditched the car because they didn't know how to drive with a manual transmission. Williams had been planning to compete with the 1960s race car in an upcoming historic car event, but the clutch was far too damaged for him to participate. It was very disappointing, but he was grateful that the car was even found. As just one of 5 that exist throughout the world, it's practically irreplaceable. All things considered, Williams breathed a sigh of relief when the vintage car was located. According to the most recent updates on the case, no arrests have been made in connection to the theft. 2. Supermarket thief brags beforehand. When 32-year-old Andrew Hennels decided to rob a Tesco in Norfolk, England back in 2015, he couldn't resist the urge to post his plans on social media. Before committing the crime, he posted a comment on Facebook saying, "Doing Tesco over." Just 15 minutes later, Hennels was arrested for holding up the store at knife point and taking off with hundreds in cash. A witness to the robbery fled to a nearby pub for safety and called the police there. While the evidence against Hennels was strong to begin with, his Facebook confession made it even easier for prosecutors to secure a conviction. The accused thief pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including robbery and carrying a weapon, and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. 1. Poorly disguised burglar gives himself away. In September 2015, a 37-year-old man named Christopher Badman decided to rob a hotel in the middle of an Elvis Presley convention in the Welsh town of Porthcawl. It's a huge event that draws hundreds of Elvis impersonators from around the world each year. But instead of carrying out the crime in an Elvis getup, Badman put a plastic bag over his face and went into the hotel around 2 o'clock in the morning. He quickly ran into several problems because he couldn't even see where he was going. Surveillance footage of the botched robbery showed the suspect stumbling around in the hallways and walking into hotel walls as he tried to navigate blindly. Eventually, he lifted the bag from his face in order to see and was standing right in front of a security camera as he did it. Badman quickly noticed the camera, which was just a few feet away, and stared straight into it. Based on his panicked facial expression, it was clear that he knew his cover was blown. At some point during the burglary, a guest woke up and found the suspect trying to steal their laptop. Badman fled the scene, but he was quickly tracked down and arrested. Authorities credited the intruder's decision to take off his disguise for helping lead them to his capture. Badman eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 16 months in prison. Thanks for watching. What would you do if you witnessed a robbery as dumb as the one from today's list? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.